If someone asked you which rank in the United States military carries the highest risk of dying in combat, what would you say? Private. The lowest rank. The person at the bottom of the hierarchy with the least authority, the least experience, the least equipment, and the least say in any decision that affects their survival. The person who gets assigned the most dangerous tasks and has the least ability to refuse them. That is the reasonable answer. It is also wrong. The rank with the highest proportional combat fatality rate across every major American conflict since the Korean War is not private. It is not sergeant. It is not any enlisted rank at all. It is second lieutenant. The most dangerous rank in the United States military is the lowest commissioned officer rank. The person who has been in the military for less than a year in most cases, who has just completed officer training and has received their commission and their bars and their platoon and their authority over 30 soldiers whose lives depend on decisions they have not yet learned how to make correctly. Today we are going to explain why that is true, what it reveals about the nature of combat leadership, and what the American military has and has not done about a problem it has understood for decades. Second lieutenant is the entry-level officer rank in the United States Army, Marine Corps, and Air Force. A second lieutenant in the Army or Marines typically commands a platoon, a unit of approximately 30 to 40 soldiers organized into smaller fire teams. It is the smallest tactical unit in the American military that has a commissioned officer in command. The path to becoming a second lieutenant runs through one of three routes. Graduation from the United States Military Academy at West Point, which produces career officers through a 4-year degree program with extensive military training integrated throughout. Completion of Reserve Officer Training Corps, or ROTC, programs at civilian universities, which provide military training alongside a standard college curriculum and commission graduates upon completing their degree. And Officer Candidate School, or OCS, which takes candidates who already hold a college degree through an intensive training course of approximately 12 weeks and commissions them as second lieutenants upon completion. All three routes produce officers. They produce officers with very different levels of preparation for the specific, brutal, and almost always chaotic reality of commanding soldiers in close combat. A West Point graduate who commissions in June of their senior year and deploys to a combat zone within their first year of service has had 4 years of intensive military education, significant leadership experience within the Academy's cadet structure, and summer training exercises designed to prepare them for exactly what they are about to face. That is a substantial preparation. It is not sufficient preparation. An OCS graduate who completes the 12-week course and receives their commission has had 12 weeks. The fundamental problem with being a second lieutenant in combat is the gap between authority and experience. A second lieutenant has the authority by rank and by the organizational structure of the American military to direct the actions of 30 soldiers whose lives depend on the quality of their decisions. The decisions that will be required of them: where to position the platoon on the objective, how to set up fields of fire, when to call for support and when to press the attack, how to read the terrain and the enemy simultaneously in conditions of noise and confusion and fear, require exactly the kind of judgment that can only be built through experience. Experience they do not have, cannot have. No training program, however well designed, can replicate the specific quality of judgment that comes from having made decisions under fire and having learned from the ones that were wrong. This gap is not invisible to the military. It has been documented, analyzed, and written about in military professional journals, after-action reviews, and leadership development studies for decades. The Army's own research has consistently shown that new second lieutenants are responsible for a disproportionate share of the tactical mistakes that produce avoidable casualties. not because they are poorly trained relative to what the training pipeline can accomplish, but because what the training pipeline can accomplish in the time available is genuinely insufficient for the demands of combat command. The military's institutional response to this gap is the platoon sergeant. Every platoon in the United States Army is led by a second lieutenant with a platoon sergeant serving alongside them. The platoon sergeant is a senior non-commissioned officer, typically a staff sergeant or sergeant first class, with years of experience and multiple deployments. The formal authority belongs to the lieutenant. The institutional expectation is that the sergeant's experience will compensate for the lieutenant's lack of it while the lieutenant learns. This system works. It also fails. It works because experienced non-commissioned officers are extraordinarily valuable, and the Army has developed over generations a culture of senior NCO mentorship of junior officers that genuinely mitigates the experience gap in many situations. It fails because in the confusion and violence of actual combat, the formal relationship between lieutenant and sergeant does not always function as designed. A lieutenant who does not yet understand what they do not know may not take counsel from their sergeant at the moment it is most needed. A sergeant who has been in situations the lieutenant has not may see what needs to be done and find the formal structure an obstacle to doing it quickly enough. The data across American conflicts tells a consistent story. In the Vietnam War, second lieutenants died at rates significantly higher than their representation in the force would predict. The Korean War showed similar patterns. In Iraq and Afghanistan, the pattern repeated itself, with young officers commanding platoons in their first deployments dying at rates that reflected both the inherent danger of their leadership position on the objective and the judgment errors that experience would eventually have corrected. There is also a specific tactical reality that drives the second lieutenant casualty rate beyond pure judgment error. The platoon commander in close combat is expected to lead from a position close enough to the action to observe it directly and make real-time decisions. This is a requirement of effective platoon leadership. It is also inherently more dangerous than positions further from the fighting. The officer leading from the front of the patrol, moving to the forward position to assess a contact, directing fire from a position where the situation is visible. These are the officer's proper tactical positions. They are also the positions where the enemy's fire is concentrated. The combination of forward positioning, inexperience, and the learning curve that combat imposes on every new officer, regardless of how well they were trained, creates a persistent and documented pattern. Second lieutenants die at higher rates because their job requires them to be where the fighting is, at the moment in their careers when they are least equipped to survive it. The American military's response has evolved incrementally without solving the underlying problem. Training has been extended, updated, and made more realistic using the kind of combat simulations and battle exercises at major training centers that were not available a generation ago. Deployment preparation has improved. The mentorship culture around new officers has been formalized and reinforced. None of these changes have eliminated the experience gap, because the experience gap is not a training failure. It is a mathematical reality. You cannot give a 22-year-old the judgment of a 35-year-old who has been doing this for 15 years. You can only get them into the situation and trust that the ones who survive will learn fast enough. That bargain, putting inexperienced leaders in charge of other people's lives and trusting that the institution around them will catch the errors that their inexperience produces, is not unique to the American military. Every military in the world faces the same problem. What varies is the training pipeline, the mentorship culture, and the willingness to honestly examine what the data shows about where and why young officers die. The United States military has been willing to examine that data. The conclusions have not changed the fundamental structure of the problem. Some problems in military organizations, as in most human institutions, do not have solutions. They only have management. Second lieutenant remains the most dangerous rank in the American military. It is also, in the accounts of officers who survived it and went on to build long careers, one of the most formative experiences in the institution. The ones who come through it with their judgment intact tend to become the officers who understand, from direct personal experience, exactly what they are asking of the young lieutenants they will eventually command. Subscribe now. The next video tells the story of the most decorated American soldier of the Second World War, who was 19 years old when he earned the Medal of Honor. Tell me in the comments, did the answer surprise you? And if you have served, what do you think should change about how the military prepares second lieutenants for combat command? Drop your answer below.